Welcome to Pick Yourself Up. I'm Asagid Haptold, your host. Today, I have a special guest. Her name is Dr. Maureen Metcalf. She is a leadership expert, specifically working on innovative leadership. Today, we're going to talk about what made her interested in this field, what minorities, underdogs, going to benefit from innovative leadership, how she overcomes setbacks, and so on and so forth. I will invite you to stay tuned and listen to this conversation. Maureen, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm delighted to join you and your audience today.
Awesome. Let's start with your story. For people who don't know you, would you mind to take 60 seconds and tell us about yourself briefly?
Sure. So I think the thing I want people to know most is why I do what I do more than the path I took to get here. And so I've worked with large consulting firms. And then after the Enron crisis, I was working for Accenture in the utilities practice, setting up trading floors, and then that business went away. And so like many people who lose a job, not because of incompetence, but because of a shift in industry, I was forced to do exactly as you say, pick myself up. And the why I do this, my focus is on helping leaders around the world elevate the quality of their leadership. And so both the technical aspects of how do I lead, and also the human being that as leaders, we are the vehicle of delivering leadership. So how do I help leaders become the best person who does the leading as well as be technically competent? And at a point in time, especially post-COVID, where we're seeing massive needs and inequity really bubbling to the surface, the better we are as leaders, the better world we create.
That's so great. Let's talk about your highest value. What mattered the most for you?
We live on a shared planet. We are impacted by what people do immediately in our proximity and across the world. So if I can influence the way people lead, again, both who they are to deliver the leadership and the skills they have as leaders, then all of the people directly impacted by them will be better off. The services and the products their organizations create will be better, and all of their stakeholders will be better. And that better ripples through the entire world. So it is my belief that leadership is kind of a lever. And if you put something constructive behind that lever, it has an incredibly positive impact. If you put something negative behind that lever, it has an equally negative impact. So if my goal is to help create the best world, given the resources I have, then this is the path that I see to make the most positive impact.
Let's talk about innovative leadership. What is the difference between any regular leadership and innovative leadership? What are the major differences?
So I'm going to give a little bit of an illustration for anyone who watches TV. Think of NCIS, the lead guy Gibbs, traditional leader. So he's in charge, he's got rules, you follow the rules. If you do what your best practices and those things, the outcomes are positive. And in a world that is relatively predictable, that the changes we're making are planned, a traditional leader can be exceptional. Now think of the world in which we currently inhabit, that COVID threw us into a series of unexpected changes. Add to that artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotic process automation, all of the things that are happening, positive and negative. We're curing diseases. We've got conscious capitalism. So it's not all dire, but in our ecosystem, climate change, all of these things intersect, and the current leader doesn't have the luxury of time and doesn't have the luxury of having all the information they need to excel in the role of leadership. So I would say the new leader looks more like Einstein or Dr. Fauci, and taking out all political stuff, that Dr. Fauci is in fact in some ways a scientist and a physician. And during the pandemic, the illustration is that as a scientist, I don't have all the information. I need to make a decision. I need to move forward. And we treat those decisions as experiments. And with experiments, we expect to change and grow and learn. As leaders, we've been positioned that we're supposed to have the right answer. And there isn't as much room for this learning and growing. And yet it is not possible because our world isn't that anymore.
It gives sense. Innovative leadership is very important in the 21st century where change is so quick and fast. But let me ask you another question. Why innovative leadership is important for minorities, underdogs? Our show focuses more on minorities and underdogs. Are there any strong reasons why my audience should be interested in innovative leadership?
The very nature of being an underdog means that you have, in some cases, you're underestimated. So when our current leaders, many of them still traditional, the underdog can in fact innovate and replace them. And I'm not saying subversion or anything like that, but think about what Airbnb did to the hotel industry, what Uber did to the taxi industry. The underdogs did something more effectively and they moved into a leading role. I think minorities and underdogs of all sorts are able to leapfrog traditional people because they aren't, in fact, held back by their own success, the golden handcuffs and the habits. If I'm in an executive role, often I don't think I need to change because I'm kind of the top of the pile. And for some people, for leaders who are at those executive levels, if they are not continuing to grow, they are often leapfrogged by underdogs. So I think folks who are either minorities or in positions that have not yet been acknowledged, there is an opportunity and more than just an opportunity that they're not held back by their current assumptions and habits.
Where should they start to be innovative?
So we have all kinds of tools and processes. What I would say is every week we post a blog and do a podcast. So it is my personal goal to make growth and development possible for people irrespective of where you are in the economic chain. So this isn't a pitch for come buy stuff. We have a ton of resources. I invest a lot of time and energy every single week to curate content that is available on our website for free. So cost shouldn't be an inhibitor. We also have workbooks at $20 or $30 or $40, where a coach is significantly more expensive. So if you do nothing else, go on the website, I think on the homepage, there's a link to an assessment through Assess Coach, again, free. Sign up on LinkedIn for the weekly newsletter, free. Sign up for the blog, free. Not that people need to do everything free, but that I don't want economics to be a barrier.
One area where I have seen a lot of pushbacks from people whenever we talk about innovation and creativity is, I'm not naturally creative, innovative. I cannot do this stuff. For those people who don't think that they are innovative, would you give us comparison, for example, between creativity and innovation, and how innovation doesn't require someone to be creative, let's say, to come up
Yeah.
with something new, never been produced before?
Brilliant question. So for one, when we talk about innovating leadership, we're not saying go redefine the field of leadership. We have in fact worked with and leveraged best researchers from a range of fields to create the body of work called innovative leadership. So you don't have to create leadership. You have to innovate or update how you lead following a defined path. So we are not expecting our clients or participants to go create a new way of leading. We've done that for you.
If somebody has to start today to be innovative, how do they know whether they are in the right direction? To say, you know what, I started this journey of being innovative last month or last year. I'm doing well, or I'm not doing anything better. Are there some parameters, some indicators where people could tell whether they're making any progress in becoming innovative leaders?
Sure. So on the website, I think it's the homepage, I should know this. There is a link to take an assessment. It's assesscoach.innovative leadership institute, I think. You can go take the free assessment. It looks at the 7 leadership competencies, and it asks you, where are you now? And where do you think you need to be? You can take that as many times as you want. You could take it every week. Now, I wouldn't expect you to show dramatic improvement in a week. The other is the workbooks that we have in a range of fields to do the exercises. And I say, write them down. It asks you to define your vision and values, do a SWOT analysis. It's not necessarily novel. It's going through the process that really enables you to shift how you think and who you are. And I think this is a really important point. Lots of people can talk about leadership and use all the right buzzwords, but they're no better as an actual leader than they were before they read the article. What we want people to do is engage in the reflection process and fundamentally change how they think and behave as leaders. So it is the jump from a flip phone to a Android or an iPhone. It's a shift in what we are able to do. And that shift only happens, to your point, when we do the work of transforming ourselves, not just, while listening to the podcast is helpful, I think it is only then saying, what do I do differently, that makes it transformative for the listener.
We have 1 minute before a break, but for some people who don't know what SWOT analysis is, would you give them a quick briefing on how they could use it to be innovative?
Sure. So we start with vision and values. So if my vision is to transform leaders across the globe, then strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What do I do well? So I am smart and I like to read and build frameworks. My weakness was I'm introverted and I'm not comfortable in public. The first time I started teaching at a grad school, I wanted to hide behind the podium. That I couldn't do what I wanted to do until I built some skills. And I know we talk about leaning into our strengths. There are also just times that we have a weakness. We need to own it, and we need to build the ability so that we can do that very thing that is so important to us.
Awesome. Let's take a very quick break and we'll be back. Our viewers will continue our conversation. Don't go away. Stay tuned. We'll be back. Welcome back to Pick Yourself Up. I am with Maureen Metcalf. We've been talking about innovative leadership. She has been sharing great insights and tools. Now we will continue our conversation, but I want to make it a little bit personal, and I want to interject a question about how she handles setbacks. I know we all experience setbacks once in a while. Would you please share to our audience how you overcome setbacks? Because this show is about picking ourselves up. We all fall down. We all experience setbacks in our business, relationships, in our professions, in our health, and so on. So could you share with us some of the things that you do to overcome setbacks?
Sure. So it's a great question. And what I'd say to start is that anyone who is doing things that are new and difficult for them, so anything innovative, we're going to have setbacks. The idea that as a leader, I have to take on the mind of the scientist. So the first is shifting my mindset from a setback is bad to a setback for a scientist is an experiment. And in an experiment, I need to make changes. I need to gather data. So I consulted with a client for a while who was a researcher in hearing. And so her goal was to ensure that people who were deaf would be able to hear. And her point was, it is more important for me to prove what doesn't work and focus my research properly so that people can hear. So the first thing is reframe the idea of setback from failure to it is an experiment that delivered the result it was looking for. I learned. So first, shift my mindset. It's not a failure, it's a learning. Second, manage my own emotions, because no matter how much I tell myself it's an experiment, I still want to be right and good and all those things we want to do. So really take the time, whatever I need, to regroup so that I am emotionally present for the next thing I need to do. That's particularly important for leaders because emotions are contagious. So if I'm doing something and I am the instrument of delivering leadership. So if I do something that causes me to be upset or embarrassed or all those things, I am likely to show it in my emotions. So I really need to regroup, figure out what I need to learn. So talk to somebody, listen to a podcast, read something, go figure out, analyze why my experiment didn't deliver the results I wanted, and redo the experiment. And part of this in leadership is helping the people with whom I'm working, ensuring that they still trust me. So it's not just that I get to go practice and do something else. People are looking to me to have the right answer. So I need to be along the process, letting people know we're doing a new experiment, we're trying something, we're going to see what we learn. And when we learn something, we're going to build those learnings into the next thing. Because often we expect our leaders to have the answers, and when they don't, we're disappointed in them. So not only am I disappointed in myself, now I've disappointed everyone around me. So that communication, I think, is also crucial.
One challenge I have seen from myself and other people, whenever we try to become innovative, creative, we struggle, especially if we are experts in an area. There is a saying, you can't teach a new trick to an old dog, which means once you are an expert, you don't let go of that I know. You don't want to venture out, try new things, and willing to fail. Have you struggled in that transition of your mindset? What helped you to make that quick shift from I'm an expert to, hey, let me experiment, let me try out and be a scientist and willing to fail? Did you have that kind of challenge? If you had, what did help you to make that transition smooth?
So I'm going to tie this back to why underdogs are successful. If we as leaders or people in any position get stuck in our expertise and are unwilling to grow, someone will leapfrog us. I fundamentally believe that's true, whether it's someone who's a minority or someone who is a teenager. There are just things that I'm astounded at what some of our young folks can do. And I hire them as interns and staff, because we have raised a generation of young people who have just amazing insights and talents into things we don't have. So I do understand the idea that I am an expert in my stuff. I continue to learn and grow, because if I'm paying attention, I realize that continually there are things I don't have the answer to. It's this idea that as parents, as we get older and we see that our kids are becoming smarter than we are, we realize that over time, we really need to keep growing or we get left behind. And the idea of old dogs and new tricks, brain research has now told us that neuroplasticity, our brains grow. And when I've had clients tell me, I'm 55 years old, I want to work for another 10 years, I don't need to do any more, my response is, the world is changing too quickly. If you want to work for 10 more years and you don't want to change, you should really go revisit your financial plan, because you won't make it 10 years. Our organizations can't afford people, especially in senior roles, who aren't going to change when the environment is changing. Sorry, that sounded harsh, but...
Yeah, got it. Actually, because you mentioned about neuroplasticity, I want to take a few minutes to talk about how that's important to underdogs, because one of the challenges underdogs, myself included, that we have, partly because there are things that we inherited from our ancestors. Remember, we don't only inherit just the physical features, we also inherit their behaviors, their thinking, their doubts, their struggles through, the science, which is epigenetic. Therefore, we have to overcome that underdog mentality that we inherited. That requires to work on our mentality, which means we have to rewrite again our brain to believe that we can do this. We're competent, we are capable, we have the potential. Yes, maybe we are underdogs. There are a lot of policies, a lot of subtle, sometimes overt barriers that may keep us from succeeding as minorities and underdogs. But the most challenging one is actually changing our mindset. Neuroplasticity can play a role. Would you talk a little bit about that in terms of changing our mentality to innovate and create, but we have maybe underlying mentality or mindset that needs to be rewired?
And I would say that is true for almost every client I'm working with, whether they're an underdog or not. When we are changing habits, so we build neural pathways in our brains, and those things keep us alive. So the thing I talk about, because it's so rudimentary, is every day when I get up out of bed, I brush my teeth and I put on clothes, right? I have never walked out of my house, no matter how tired I was, without clothing. My brain is wired to make sure that I don't do that, which keeps me, from being arrested. That same thing in my brain keeps me in a mindset of underdog, or I'm short, so I can't do this, or whatever the thought process is. And the same way our brain is wired to keep us alive, it is wired to keep us where we are. So if I want to change my station in life, if I want to grow as a leader, then I need to rewire my neural pathways. And a lot of that is practice. There's an article, HBR article, Why People Don't Change, by Bob Keegan. It's one of the best articles I can recommend to anyone that helps us understand. I say I'm committed to something, and yet I do things that undermine myself. How do I identify them? How do I identify the underlying assumptions that are often unconscious? I can't do this because I'm not smart enough was mine. I've got to work harder than anybody else just to get where they got because I'm just not as good. All of us have some underlying assumptions that hold us still, and being able to identify them and then identify them every day when we run into those barriers, because it is every day between my ears that I hold myself back. It's bad enough that other people hold me back, but I'm doing it to myself. And as long as I see that I'm not as good or not as smart or not as capable, then I won't be able to live up to my potential.
These are really great tips for us to really challenge our own mentality, to change it, rewire it. Since we have only left with 3 minutes, I want to spend a little bit of time about your book you wrote about innovative leadership. Would you tell us quickly the 3 takeaways from the book?
So the biggest one we've already talked about. To be an effective leader, I need to continue to innovate or update my mindset, how I think about leadership and how I behave. So that's 1. 2, that leadership is not just a set of activities. It is me as the individual, who I am doing the leading, that I lead much more effectively when I'm leading myself and growing myself and understanding that I need to be the best human being I can be. And then the third, and there are a lot of these, but the third I would say is really important, is as leaders, we must be committed to the mission of the organization. I hear people say, I'm a servant leader, therefore I work for my people. Or on the other side, I'm a capitalist, I work for the stockholders. We work for all of them. And if we have a strong mission and vision, it helps us navigate taking care of our people. It's absolutely foundational. Taking care of the people who finance us, absolutely foundational. Taking care of our customers. As leaders, we are balancing every day and every minute competing needs. Customers want to pay less, employees want to make more. It's good leaders look to the mission and vision and balance all of those so that we can deliver on the promises we've made to each of those stakeholders.
These are outstanding takeaways. I encourage people to go and read more. How can people get your book?
They can go to the website, innovativeleadershipinstitute.com. And again, we've got a ton of free resources. Connect with me on LinkedIn. And when you do that, say that you heard this show so that I know who you are, that you're not trying to sell me something. And I'm happy to connect with you. Follow the Innovative Leadership Institute newsletter on LinkedIn. Any of these will get you to me and to, more importantly, to the work of the Institute.
Do you want to share any contact information for people to get to you, or do you want to suggest that they should go to your LinkedIn?
Go to my LinkedIn or info@innovativeleadershipinstitute.com.
Awesome. I enjoyed our conversation. This is my hope that our audience got a lot of things out of our conversation to take their innovative leadership to the next level. Thank you very much for coming. On behalf of our audience, I want to appreciate your time and the ideas that you have shared. Dear our viewers, I hope you enjoyed and got a lot of things out of this interview. Thank you for being here. I encourage you to reach out, to write emails, suggestions, to go to social media, keep in touch, engage, and ask, suggest. I look forward to see you again with another interview. Until then, have a great time. Thank you very much for watching.